So today we're going to talk about clinical operations update, and I'm going to go through and outline a little bit about what we're going to do, and then we'll start. I'm going to talk about SDM Associates, which is somewhat of a name that Mike Meany and I gave to the idea of bringing patient managers into the clinic, merging the classes, and bringing somewhat more of a private practice model into the clinics and trying to facilitate that through. We're going to talk a little bit about clinic grading. Jane has been spearheading a lot of that recently, and she's doing the calibration exercises. I know that happened this morning. Davis, okay. Thank you, Davis. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. Review of clinic policies and procedures, which is somewhat of this handout, which is just obviously just going to be a quick review. We'll go over it. And then some time for questions. But the goals of the SDM Associates was, like I said, to design a clinic structure that would enhance the education of our students, maintain compliance, and better serve patients. And obviously with the compliance officer, now we're going to have a new one starting July 7th. And Donna is going to be working with Sarah for like a 2-week transition period. And some of the things we're looking at compliance would be the charts, is a big thing, and obviously matching the charts to the ledgers and doing appropriate billing for Medicaid and any type of other third-party billing. Achieve a closer alignment of the educational environment with the operation of a typical dental practice, like I said, and emulate aspects of a workflow observed at other schools to gain efficiency and productivity, and basically just strive for a better work environment for all of us, all right? We're all working in it, so why not make it as better as we can? And so we came up with this idea of working with 6 practice groups led by an assigned group director and a core faculty member. And then only students assigned to that particular group will be able to utilize that core faculty member and group director. And some of the biggest things in that is trying to limit, say, someone who's signing up with Dan Klabawi and doing prosthetics, or anybody in the room that's doing prosthetics and following those big cases. If you're signing up with 40 students in a group as compared to signing up with, giving yourself the availability of signing up with 110, the likelihood of finishing cases and having students sign up with you on a routine basis is limited, all right? And we'll go through some other things later. I'll show you how we broke some of the scheduling out of the faculty. But the thought in doing that too is then still keeping faculty in the same 6 group where they can work together, still have rotating faculty throughout the floor that could work with all the other students and kind of facilitate treatment that way. So like I said, the 3rd and 4th years work together, with the 2nd years entering in the group sometime in the start of the spring semester to help facilitate CLD 828, which is one of the dental assisting courses that we kind of offer and have the underclassmen come in and help in the clinics. And this way they would kind of be familiar with that group and then be assigned to that group inevitably starting in the early fall the starting of their 3rd year. Staff managers are going to be personnel that are going to be on the floor. Right now we're proposing doing 3 staff managers that'll be right now located in the 1st floor clinic. And what the thought is with them is they will enter the treatment in Picasso. They will do a mini chart audit on the floor. And they will, if there's any issues, the student can now go to the faculty member that they're working with and say, Dr. Hart, I'm having a problem with this chart. Maybe the signature is missing, the stamp, something's missing in the ledger, or in the progress notes that we want to report in the ledger. There is an issue with the code or the procedure that the manager wants to enter in Picasso, and now the student can then go back to that faculty member that's on the floor and get that taken care of before that treatment's entered. And then another thing too is obviously chart compliance, and the charts are all over the building, as many of you know. And we talked about that at the Associate Dean's meeting this morning, and how we've had to go into offices and try and find charts and do a whole bunch of things that way. So now the patient manager then at the end of that appointment collects the chart, and we'll be responsible for dropping the bin of charts off in the chart room so that the charts aren't on the clinic floor overnight or stuck in little cubbies or stuck in students' lockers. Okay, so we're trying to collect the charts, and the staff managers will help with that. The remaining teaching faculty, like I said, will work in multiple groups, and students will now have some restrictions in faculty sign-up, all right? And the thought with bringing the patient managers in is to have them working with all of the students on one floor, and then see if we can then bring that to the entire school next year. So it will be 2015-16, where we'd have patient managers in the entire pre-doctoral clinic. So if you look at an example of a clinic schedule, you could see where we have a group and core all the way down the line. And what we try to do is keep these pretty stable throughout, okay? You'll have a group of rotating faculty, and then we have CPE examiners. We're looking at doing 2 CPE examiners per procedure. Students would have to sign up for a CPE with that particular instructor and review that with them ahead of time, and then 2 examiners would grade that particular CPE. Also, in looking at the CPEs, we want to try and make those CPEs, the faculty that are grading them, pretty consistent. Okay? Obviously, we're going to have people who might not be able to come in for vacations. People do get sick. So we're going to have to work out some substitutions with that. But obviously, in talking with Jane, and we've looked at the schedule extensively, we do not have a lot of room for people to call in sick. You know, unfortunately, we don't have a lot of wiggle room. So we're really stressed in that area, and we have to work on that. You know, Jane and I are going to meet again, obviously, when we finalize the fall schedule. We pretty much have the fall schedule pretty much allocated already. And so we're trying to work with it and figure out how we're going to go with certain things. But, you know, we've got a good base to start with, a lot earlier than normal. And also, too, I added this last night when I was going through this, recall rotation. Recall rotation has been a big obstacle for us in trying to work with the students that are on recall, provide an adequate oral examination, so utilizing restorative faculty and perio faculty. The thought is, how do we assign someone just to do the recall exams? In talking to the senior DAs who have had to deal with this throughout the year and try and pull people, it's been a little bit of a nightmare for them to try and find faculty to help cover that. So the thought is now, do we assign someone to do that to take the burden off the rest of the faculty who are supervising procedures? I've met with the group directors about that and talked to them about it, and that's something that they'd like to do too. But again, trying to find the available faculty to cover it and kind of set up rules and parameters. You know, if the case devolves an indirect restoration, obviously you need study models. So the thought of doing a complete recall examination with something like that, you're better off just having the student take the study models, bring the patient back for a comprehensive exam, present the study models, they can look at the case that way and move forward from there. Now, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we have somewhat of a different scenario where we don't have any group directors on the floor and we don't have anybody scheduled except for Latai. You're there Thursday afternoon. Okay? So the thought is to have core faculty members set up, and with those groups, we try to keep these same core faculty to follow these specific groups together so that on a Tuesday, Thursday, they can keep following the same group. Obviously for this, I just pulled out a normal, I think I want to say it was Tuesday, and these are the faculty we have rotating. We still obviously have denture clinic, and then the CPE examiners would be as listed. Now, this is just a random example, okay? This isn't what faculty are scheduled on Tuesday, Thursday. The morning and afternoons are all different, obviously, because Latai is only there in the afternoon, and she's not listed here. So this is just to try and give an example to everybody of what it looks like and hopefully how it's going to turn out in the end. This is a small little workflow diagram that Mike came up with, and just showing basically the integration, the working with the faculty member, the possible integration with the group director, and then the inevitable dropping off everything at the patient manager and moving forward from there. You know, this is the 4th year, 3rd year student, and then the 2nd year student who then be integrated at various steps along the way and working with the patients. So a couple strengths, I think, of the SDM Associates. It de-emphasizes student activities that directly affect the school's ability to effectively maintain appropriate compliance. And hopefully will improve overall clinic production. Patients benefit from more case oversight by the group directors, because the group directors now are going to be integrally involved with the students in their group and working with the patients associated with those students, instead of having to worry about 110 students. As far as who they can work with and manage, they're working with now the 38 to 40 that are in the groups. Students have increased time to concentrate on clinical treatment by moving away from having to do some of their own scheduling. Now, obviously, that doesn't work for the other half, but one of the resounding positives from the scheduling pilot this year was the fact that students had more time to do certain things. We're also going to talk about some rotation changes that are also going to help give the students a little bit more time in clinic to do things. And then to engage business operations in clinic and have them used a little bit more effectively. Because let's be honest, some of the business operations people, they peak at certain hours in the day, and otherwise they're really not that engaged in what's going on. This is a good way to engage them. Yes?
Joe, my mind was probably wandering.
Sure.
The staff managers are the people that will enter treatment plans and...
No, they won't enter treatment plans. They're going to enter the treatment on the floor. The student's still responsible for any of the treatment plan and working with the faculty on that.
Okay.
And so say when
What does the staff manager do with...
okay, so say like I'm a student, I'm working with Pat. So Dr. Hart and I are doing a procedure. So now Pat, on the appointment card, the patient's going to make an appointment for the next appointment. On that card is going to be what was done during the day, during that specific appointment period. So the student's going to go through everything with Pat. Pat's not going to have to approve the checkout in Picasso any longer. He's going to be able to go right to the daily evaluation. Pat's approval of the checkout is looking at the appointment card that they're going to give to the manager saying that this procedure was done in clinic. When that appointment card in the chart is presented to the manager is going to look at the progress note, then look at what's entered in the appointment area as far as treatment completed at that day, enter it in Picasso. Okay, so then
The specific...
so if I worked on Pat with a 31 MOD resin, okay, then that should be on the treatment. It should be clearly noted in the progress notes in the chart that we completed 31 MOD. The manager is going to write 23993, whatever it is, as the code, and they're going to swipe it out and put it in, and the faculty won't have to do that anymore, and Pat will just go right to his daily evaluation.
How long are the managers going to be there collecting that information?
They're stationed there from 9 to noon and 1 to 4. They're going to be on the floor the whole time. Now, the managers will stay later, Pat, okay? And they may take lunch at 1 o'clock when the clinic just starts, because that's what Carol's been doing now. Carol stays at her station from 9 until 1, and she goes to lunch from 1 to 2, and then she stays from 2 to 5.
Oh, okay.
Okay? So we're trying to facilitate that.
Joe,
Fadi.
about the subcodes. I mean, you give an example for operatives, the procedure can be done hopefully in one session.
Right.
People in Tensha, you were doing bridge and stuff. A lot of faculty don't know the subcodes.
That's a good point, Fadi. You know, I mean, my thought was that they would put this, so if you're working on a complete denture, you would know what, the faculty would know what subcode to put down. If you're doing try-in, secondary impression, bite registration, you need to write, but that'll also be in the progress notes. And the patient managers are taking some courses on coding. They've been reviewing it. They're all going to take payments on the floor as well. So they're trying to facilitate people not waiting in line at the business office and getting all jammed up. And the patient managers too will be walking around to see how people are doing. And they might be able to check out patients right at the point of care stations. Okay?
How many are there per group?
There's going to be one patient manager per group. And they're going to be stationed Monday through Friday. They don't have any off time. And we're going to set up specific workstations in the first floor clinic for them. That's the goal. We have a meeting tomorrow at 3 o'clock with someone who's going to look at how we're going to organize it, how we're going to take the chair out. The only thing we're going to take out is the operatory itself. We're going to leave the cabinetry there, put a desk there, and try and work it that way. We're trying to do it as minimalistic as possible without having to put the clinic through chaos and trying to redo a lot of construction and things. So
who are the SDM associates then?
well, the SDM Associates is really just a name I gave it. It's not really anybody. It's just a name of the
concept?
Yeah, it's the name of the concept, really, more than anything else. Davis.
You said, you're going to try and rework the rotations.
Yeah.
Have students more time in the clinic?
Well, right, and I'm going to get a slide that'll show that in a second.
Is there going to be an associated reallocation of resources?
More faculty?
Well, yeah, Jane and I are trying to do that. I mean, some of the students are going to have more time just based on how rotations are going to start, and so that's going to put an extra burden on the faculty we already have, Davis, obviously. I mean, I'm very worried about the effect that everything that we're doing, no matter what it is, from last semester, which spring semester was disastrous, especially in the third year clinic, the D3s, and we had a lot of issues getting things done. We had shortages of faculty all over. I mean, it was difficult at best. And so we're trying to see how we can help it. The students who have extra time are not going to be able to sign up with faculty in clinic. They're going to be able to go to the lab and get things done, possibly see a faculty member who may not be in clinic at that given time. Try and follow case a little bit better, because when I get to it, but I'll just say it now, pedo, for example, is most likely not going to start Monday through Thursday until 2 o'clock. those students on pedo rotation are going to have that whole entire morning to do things. Now, Lata and I are going to meet a little bit later today and discuss treatment planning, and that might be the time where we do the treatment planning board. So the students who are on pedo rotation, who don't have to be in clinic, that's a time where they can do the treatment planning board, where we can start looking at cases before they start instead of after they're finished or in the progress of, and we can get rid of the Wednesday night course and have more engagement of faculty, because Wednesday at 4 o'clock, 4:30 till 6 o'clock is not the most ideal time to have a class and get faculty to be engaged.
But why do you want to remove 3 chairs from downstairs? I mean, do they have to be really physically stationed in the clinic?
We've tried to find other places for them to go. And because of the renovations that are planned for next fall, or next spring rather at this time, we're trying to do this as a temporary setup. Where they're going to be, the thought is, in some of the new clinic models I've looked at with the architects, is we're trying to create pockets of spaces for people, like staff members in the clinic, and faculty spaces so you could put your bag down. You can actually go somewhere and sit without being in the, or having to tie up an operatory. So the thought is to take away operatory space to create small little rooms. Say if you want to meet with a student, have a little consult in private, you can meet in these rooms. So as we're designing those spaces for every section of the clinic, we're going to design then patient manager spaces for the clinic. There's also been conversation of taking away the dental assistant station, or cutting those dental assistant stations in half and using a supply cart. And that those big supply carts then get dropped into the basement every night, get restocked, all right, and then are brought back up the next day. And so we're trying to work on ways of doing that. A lot of other schools are doing that as well to control inventory. I don't know, some may not know this, but we issued an RFP recently. Henry Schein won the bid, and Henry Schein will be taking care of our supply orders. So say if you're working, like Ed, you're in charge of post-grad pros, Cheryl will be able to order for you on a separate account for post-grad pros. So any supply you need will be ordered separately and then delivered directly to the 3rd floor clinic. Same if Gene's ordering something for endo, it'll be delivered right to his clinic on the 1st floor. If Mary Alice orders it and it gets delivered to her, it goes right to her 1st floor clinic. Okay, so that's what we're trying to facilitate with the ordering, and hopefully some of this will help with a lot of other processes that we're doing. And we're hoping that we don't need as much clinic space downstairs, and we're trying to create more universal space to do things, because a lot of times the clinic hasn't been that full. You know, there's a lot of empty spaces and chairs in the clinic, and the 1st floor clinic's going to basically stay the same, and so is the 2nd floor may lose 20 chairs depending on how we structure it and how we work it. We're thinking of putting a classroom in the 2nd floor clinic that holds 100 students. Okay? So, all right, there are some weaknesses, obviously. Patients that really enjoy having the day-to-day contact with the students. If the patient managers are there, the students relinquish basically all their rights to scheduling appointments. The scheduling pilot students this year had no leverage in going into Picasso and scheduling. They were basically turned off. They couldn't do it. Carol did it all for them. It worked out pretty well. Coordination and management of the patient cases will, demand increased oversight and commitment of everybody that's working with the students. Possible increased staff costs if we cannot manage the patient managers with the existing staff we have. And impact on overall operations, considering that implementation must occur at the very latest by July 25th. I have a meeting tomorrow morning with everybody to try and make sure we get the schedule released in Picasso early enough so we can start facilitating appointment scheduling. We've recently, in the last 2 years, it's been disastrous, okay, in getting that done and having it ready. And that's why we started a lot earlier this year trying to get that done. And so everyone who's, like, say, Barb Sutton from Perio, Carol Sabuda from Endo, we're all getting together to find out how we're going to make sure we're going to schedule everybody. Ann has the rotation schedule written already for the fall. That's done. And so we're trying to really facilitate these things a lot earlier and get them rolling. Here's the clinic rotation thing I said initially. We talked about what it really translates to. The juniors only have 11 weeks in clinic with a total of 33 days. The seniors have 12 weeks with a total of 60 days. Okay? Now, ortho nitrous and implant for the seniors, they sometimes have that in a morning session, so they may lose 1 session, 2 sessions a week depending. So this 60 days which is 120 periods, may be less, all right? This 33 days, which is 66 clinic sessions, may be less because they have TMD on Mondays. Another thought we have is to take recall from the juniors for the spring semester, make that 1 week, and then give the seniors 1 week in the spring semester, because a lot of the seniors are just kind of hanging out and trying, are finishing things, and an extra week of that may help. Also, you'll see ECHM, that's Erie County Health Mall. What we're doing with the oral surgery rotation and urgent care rotation is combining those two rotations, sending the students that were scheduled normally for urgent care to Erie County Health Mall, and oral surgery now will split. Instead of how we have two rotations, the juniors and seniors that are on those rotations, some will be in urgent care and some will be in oral surgery. If they triage a patient in or in urgent care, they'll bring that patient down to oral surgery, extract the tooth, and then a student that's in oral surgery will come back up to triage any urgent care patients that are still on the third floor. Dr. Mike Hatton won't be taking as many urgent care surgeries, okay, but he still will be on the floor doing that. Mike is going to be taking other surgeries that students want to sign up with, and obviously still facilitating all the surgeries in denture clinic.
But in terms of our surgery down, when you triage them upstairs, you're gonna take them downstairs. What's the commitment downstairs? They're gonna take that 2 times?
They have to, that we're meeting with Rick and Barry. Michael and I and Rick and Barry have had numerous conversations. Michael has a meeting with Rick tomorrow about this again, and we're putting some stats together, but that's what has to be done. The goal is, they're complaining because they say they're not getting enough experiences on the rotation. We're sending students down there with surgeries. They're saying they're too busy and they can't do them, and then they bring them upstairs and Mike ends up doing them. Okay? So we started the oral surgery clinic obviously to work with the denture clinic, and Mike was doing such a good job with urgent care that he has been able to start facilitating patients getting treatment done, which is what we want. We want the patients to have an experience here so that they want to come back and have more done.
Yeah, because Friday we send the patient back
I know.
for surgery.
I saw the schedule already.
They gave them, what's the first available? 8/18.
It's ridiculous. They don't have much of a summer schedule at all, Fadi.
There you go. Their part-timers don't come in.
No, Thursdays,
Not much of a regular schedule either.
no. I mean, they don't, Pat. And I went over that today, and Michael and I talked about it this morning already, and I've got a meeting with him after this to talk a little bit more. And Latab, we're going to talk about treatment planning too, but
Because if you don't have really an honest commitment from them, this is not gonna work for you.
I know it's not.
That's
Well,
right.
the nice thing is, because Jane and I have been able to assign restorative faculty to urgent care now, and without having Mike be responsible for the triaging and supervising the surgeries, we're going to have a restorative dentist in urgent care Monday through Friday, taking care of the basics and triaging, and then if the patient isn't treated downstairs, we're going to make note of that patient who isn't treated downstairs after they were given the opportunity, and then Mike's going to extract the tooth upstairs, because he's basically going to be stationed in denture clinic 5 days a week now.
Sending it down again.
Well, because what I'm trying to, for lack of a better way of saying it, I guess I'm on tape, I shouldn't. I'm the complaints that I'm getting from oral surgery saying that the rotations have kind of died down since Mike's been extracting teeth on the third floor. So we're trying to, I'm trying to say, hey, listen, you're not doing it, that's why we started this in the first place. Okay, and so now we have to kind of prove it all over again, because I've got my butt chewed out a few times, I promise. Davis.
What patients did you say are going to be referred to the Erie County Health Mall?
Not the patients, the students. The students that were at one point on the urgent care rotation here, because we had 3 rotations, a junior and senior on oral surgery, and then a senior on urgent care. So now what we did is we took the urgent care rotation and are going to send them to the Erie County Health Mall, and then we just split the oral surgery rotation because we had 14 students down in one room doing nothing. So now we're going to half the students that are downstairs and bring the other half upstairs, so at least they're engaged in the clinical process and not eating Paula's Donuts and playing on Facebook. Okay? Because every time I go down there, that's what I see. And so, but one of the things I wanted to point out, the students really, especially in the junior year, are not in clinic that often. They're really not. And if they're taking 2 and 3 appointments to comprehensively treatment plan a patient, by the time they get around to actual active treatment, it's difficult. Okay? Yes, Ed.
The Shine contract, is that going to replace is that going to be an inventory control contract?
Totally. Yes.
They're going to take things out of the gold room, and it's going to be dispersed by Henry Schein then.
So everything that we possibly can will be dispersed through Henry Schein. Anything that we can't, say Ed, you have a specialty item you need for the clinic, well, you're going to have the flexibility to order that through a different vendor. You know, we're not going to take that, we're not going to say, if you can't find it in Henry Schein, then you can't have it. You know, but the thought is to try and then we can pull up, what did Postgrad Pros order this month, this week? How much of this are they using?
So we're beginning the ability to control expenses then.
Right, exactly. And that's some of the reason for it. Because right now, I can't give you an accurate report of what you actually spent last year because it's all being pulled out of one account. And the invoices all go into a big pool, and we can't pull them out individually because they're not categorized individually.
Where are the lab invoices going to go?
Lab invoices have been characterized, they're the same. So they're going to still go through the clinic budget just the way they were. You know,
Did you get a report for what your lab expenses are?
We get a report, I'm not sure what it reflects.
yeah, I mean, I have some in my office. I'll bring them over when I'm done, and we can talk about that. You know, I'll show you, because I get a report from Diana Easton every month or quarterly
You know
on,
what the outside lab usage is?
Right.
I know outside lab.
that's the outside lab, that's the lab use.
It would be really good to know what D is charging the school.
Inside lab, sure.
Well, that's something that Dee would have to set up then. You know,
Saying it's something related to clinic, maybe it's.
yeah, maybe, I mean, I can try and figure out a way of doing that, you know, but that would be a tracking thing through Gunther or something like that we'd have to set up in a database that Dee could then just plug in a number, or Debbie or John can do something with. I don't know how many people were in the room when I gave my presentation for this job, but this quote I found in one of the old yearbooks, and many of you know I really like history, and I thought this was kind of a great quote that Dan Squire had about that he found it advisable to abolish the point system in the infirmary, and the students are now marked upon the efficiency of their work with a view to quality and not quantity. So we've had an issue with points and CPUs, or whatever they were called in 1918, but that was an issue, and he obviously, that was a big issue then, and he decided to change it, and I feel that that's really what we need to do. And so comes to my only 2 words on this side, case completion. I'd like the new focus toward completing patient treatment. And that's why there's a final case review form, which has been revised and approved by CMC and the Clinic Council. And this form is what we're going to use after a patient's completed to track and see how things were done, how fast they were done, and how well they were done. And that's going to be then turned back into the Quality Assurance Committee for review, which I am chair of. And we will review those on a quarterly basis. But it's really a good way for the students to track their progress. The students, one thing I'll say too, is the students, all the information that I'm presenting today, the students are going to receive in the exact same format as orientation, at orientation. So I'm trying to make sure everybody has as much information as possible. Some things are in progress, as I'll get to later, but the focus is really trying to complete the cases in a reasonable time frame, because we haven't been able to achieve that. And eliminating the barrier of the CPU and the students concentrating on certain things, I think this is really going to help. Because I don't know how many of the faculty in this room heard CPUs this early fall, but I didn't hear it mentioned once. It never came up. Okay? So, yeah, sure.
What faculty will review this? Somebody, a faculty member that's worked with the student, or is the?
My anticipation is the group director that's working with the student on that tier should review this with their chart reviews. Okay? It's a perfect opportunity. You're reviewing the chart anyway, so basically it's just looking at one more form if the case has been completed.
Don't you look at the patient too to see? I mean, how do you know if you're just looking at the?
Oh, you absolutely have to look at the patient. My thought is that it would come at the last appointment that the patient has. Or we used to wait until the 6-month recall came up. I don't really think that's the best idea, to wait 6 months. My thought is the patient's complete at that appointment. The patient's going to be back assigned to recall because they're complete. Now's the time to look at the form, go over it with the student. Because the student, in some thoughts in grading, I have a little proposed grading percentage breakdown, but I want this to count for part of their grade and how they're doing it, how quickly they go through it, and how they manage it. Davis.
You know, CPUs may not be a part of the CLD course, but they still are in the discipline.
Well, you know, Davis, I'm going to talk about that in a second. The next slide will talk about that for sure. Yeah, CPUs we're not getting rid of completely. Okay, they're still going to be in Picasso. They're still going to be tracked. They're still going to be reported. I like to use them for some traditional comparisons, especially from the last few years, on how we kind of change them and alter them to now, where we try and do something with just looking at them kind of on the outside instead of them counting toward the absolute number of the grade, okay? So here's somewhat components of the CLD grading that we're kind of looking at. Daily evaluations comprise hopefully 50%, a revised practice management rubric at 20%, final case reviews at 20%, and chart reviews and audits at 10%. Fadi set up a whole bunch of in-services for the students. When you flip your page, you'll see this is the chart audit form. I don't know how many faculty have ever seen this form, but this is what Carol Mills and Sarah Appleby are using when they're going through the charts and reviewing them for completeness and accuracy. So I gave this to all the students, and obviously I'm going to give it to all the faculty. And this is what they're faced with. So Carol will get the charts. She'll go over the charts. She'll start marking them in red. She'll call the student in, review this, and then the student will have to go out with the chart and try and find the signatures, bring it back to Carol. She can check it off as done, and the sheet gets filed. That's a lot of extra work. Hence, some of the patient managers to hopefully check some of these things on the clinic floor and get it done so we don't have this extensive chart auditing process. But this is all of the components that the students are held to and what they really need to look at, okay? And then, like I said, David, CPUs will continue to be tracked and reported, but will just not count toward the CLD grade. We have a great tracking mechanism with them. Why change it? And we're going to have to employ something with that for the disciplines, because I don't foresee us having any time or wherewithal to change all the disciplines. Okay, we're just going to have to keep it the way it is for now, one change at a time.
I think it's meaningful in the disciplines, all right? Because it doesn't have the same bastardization as it does with CLD.
Right, exactly. I agree with that. Okay? And so, any questions on that anymore? Okay, so I'm going to go through some of the policy and procedure review, and then we're going to go through some coding things and a few other things. Jane and I came up with this progress notes kind of write-up last year. We used this at last year's orientation, but now with the patient managers being in clinic and having to review the progress notes and everything, this should hopefully help as a kind of a standardization of what the progress note should look like, okay? And there's obviously a lot of key features in here. I'm certainly not going to read it. You're all experienced in writing and looking at progress notes. I just want to give it as a review, okay? Well, do you guys have the prescription one? Is it on the one form? Yep. You have it? Okay, mine it's missing, okay. Yeah, it's on I try to do everything double-sided, so yeah, thank you, Lata. One big thing with... It's on the back of progress notes. It's not there, Jane?
I don't have one. I just don't have it in my, I don't have the progress notes one in my.
Oh, then she must have missed it when she stapled them. There's a ton more back there, but the prescription run, see if there's any more back there. Yeah, there we go, okay. That's just something that Mark Roble came up with last year that I circulated to the faculty. I just, again, want to re-stress it. If we're writing for any type of controlled substance, we need to go into the database through the DEA and look at it. We also have to write on the prescriptions. We don't need your regular DEA number if you're writing for an antibiotic. You need to write your NPI number down. And it has to be your own personal NPI and not an institutional NPI. You can't use an institutional DEA, and you can't use an institutional NPI. I was on a RAM trip in Tennessee this weekend with some students, and I was called 3 times by Diane Notaro for prescriptions. Okay, so I had to call pharmacies. Prescriptions weren't stamped, no NPI, no signature on some. One was dated 2 days later than the prescription was actually written. And a contact information. I know it's, I don't know these patients. They always end up calling me from the pharmacies to figure out what we're going to do. So a contact number for, if you wrote the prescription, for the pharmacy to call you directly. Now the school, you've all seen the prescriptions, it just says SUNY at Buffalo School of Dental Medicine across the top of the prescription. It doesn't give the address of Squire Hall or the phone number of the dean's office any longer. And a contact number would be great. Now some faculty are objectionatory to that, they just have to let me know, and I won't have you put it down. But if you're writing the prescription for the patient, usually you understand the case you're treating, you understand the dynamic of it. I haven't seen one narcotic prescription leave the pre-doc clinic this year. Okay, and I haven't heard of any. And I know there's a lot of antibiotics and things like that being written, but we're trying to limit the number of prescriptions. Post-grad's been writing, obviously, endo and surgery are writing a lot of the narcotic scripts. So that's been kind of an easy thing for us not to deal with. But NPI is the big thing that they really need on any type of prescription other than a narcotic. You don't need your DEA for a regular script.
I
Jane.
think part of the reason some faculty don't want to put their contact number down is because they want patients having access to it.
I know.
Because you give them the script, they've got your number. And
Right.
I
Yeah,
think that's,
I know. It's just a now calling them in is an ideal situation. Now, we could convert to calling in, but that means faculty members going to have to stop working on the clinic floor, get the pharmacy phone number from the patient. If they don't have it,
the school staff number. Yeah,
Staff
manager
They
do.
have our NPIs and we give them.
well, now that's an idea.
Yes, we will have to carry our NPI on us.
Who's got a pen I can borrow? Thank you. That's a great, I never thought of that.
Yeah, who takes care of those faculty who can't? Yes, that's my biggest.
Well, alternate faculty then are taking care of that. Alternate, well, whoever, like say, if I couldn't write a script, that I would go to say Pat or Latan and say, this is going,
Say no.
well, then we have to find somebody else. I mean,
What would be your reason for saying no?
Not be familiar with the case.
With the
Yes.
case, that's what.
There's no time.
Like it's your case, and you're asking me to write you a prescription for a patient that I
They're
don't
not
know.
licensed.
A lot of
Yep,
failure.
many of them are.
yeah, a lot of them are.
Residents.
Thank you.
They're residents, so somebody in that discipline should be managing it. And that is an issue, and I understand it. If you don't have a license, some people don't want to sign. Yes, you're taking
Yeah, because they come to us and write,
responsibility.
could you please sign, to write this for us for failure because Dr. So-and-so cannot. I'm like,
Right.
It happens a lot. I don't, I'm saying this is something that's a serious.
Right. Well, I think Dan makes a good point about doing something with having someone call it in that way. We really need to explore that a little bit better. Those are very good options. I'm gonna give that some thought and try and plan that out for the fall. We still have some time.
Chairs meeting.
Yeah, that's a good chairs meeting topic, Jane. You're right.
Just like the doctor's office where staff.
Right.
call in.
Yeah, Charlotte called in almost 95% of mine at the office for sure. No doubt about that. Okay, thank you for that. Incident reporting. Just to go over the incident reform. These are stationed all over clinic. They're at the front desk. We had a patient fall the other day at the front desk. Just went to Casey, filled out the form, made sure the patient was okay, and then brought the form to Robin. This is very important for QA and tracking, DOH. All right, we need to have any type of incident report. This is a double-sided form. It gives you some information. Also, too, it talks about if you have an exposure, all right, you have to bring the patient, the source patient has to be treated. They can bring them over to Michael Hall. They can go till about 4:15 in the afternoon to be seen over there. Most likely the patient at Michael Hall is going to be given a script and probably sent over to ECMC. The student obviously will receive any services necessary right at Michael Hall. But it's very important that when they do go over to Michael Hall, they do have a copy of this form with them. All right, it describes the incident. There's the patient, they should bring the patient, copy of the patient medical history with them as well. Michael Hall has asked for that recently, just so that they can go over that with the patient while they're sitting there and then advise on what steps should be taken next, okay?
Patient is not required to pay for that if there's any cost.
That's right. We've had a few instances like that. A patient recently swallowed a cast post and core. We sent them to ECMC, and we did they did the X-ray and everything, and then we picked up the tab. Okay, it happens. A new implant tracking form that you're going to see in the charts. This came from the implant department. Deb Falter, Seb Adriana, Bob Buhite, and all the implant fellows. I know Jane, I'm sure you had some, and Jen Carasina had some input on this. I was going to talk more a little bit about implants, but Jen's going to be talking about that, so I didn't want to spend too much time on it. But I just wanted to make you aware that this form is going to be in the charts. Bonnie Barry, as the new postgraduate DCC, is going to be help tracking this form. And this will give you a little bit of an update if you're faculty on the floor and you're worried about a case with it involves implant dentistry, and it may be involving something that you're working on, maybe it's an RPD or it's a it's an overdenture or something, you want to know the status, you want to start that procedure, this implant tracking form will let you know the status of the implant, where it is, so you don't have to go through thousands of pages of progress notes to try and find the notations from the implant faculty in the surgeries. Okay? So just take a review of that. I know it says draft, but like I said, these have been approved already.
Where's that going to be?
In the chart, Davis, I don't know where specifically they're going to place it, but it needs to be in the chart, so we'll find a place for it.
Original and chart, copy to implant coordinator and patient advocate. So there are
3 sets.
3 sets. The reason for this is, one, so that actually part of this, the patient would have a record. If they leave the school, they can take it to wherever they're going, and they know exactly what fixtures are in there, what restorations were done. It also makes it easier for us to track any complications. There are codes that can be entered in the Picasso for also for implant complications. And this way we can follow. Otherwise, we have patients that are lost. We don't know, they could have an issue with an implant, periimplantitis or whatever. There's no, we don't know when to get them in, how we're going to follow it. So now there is, this was devised so that we could track that stuff. Correct? I mean, Ed's been quite instrumental.
There's an implant surgical production summary and implant restorative production summary. And periimplantitis, it's on that form. So there should be, it's a U-code, so you should be able to ring up that U-code and find everybody who has been diagnosed with mucositis or implantitis, which we couldn't do before. We didn't know what the order. And then if a patient leaves the school, they should have a copy of this form indicating the system that they have and the nomenclature of the implant, which we were not giving patients.
Yeah, it's really a great idea, and I think it's going to save a lot of time and effort. And if patients do leave the school, they'll know what components they have in their mouth and present that to the restorative dentist or surgeon, whoever, depending on who's going to finish the case off. So
if we get this back, the patient has an implant, and the people who replace the implant, the top 2 sections of this haven't been filled out.
that's a big issue, Davis. We'll have to get it back to them to have it filled out. Yeah.
That's supposed to be done at the time of surgery.
Right.
I understand that.
It will be done. It will be done.
Well,
It's surgeon at the time of placement in these 2 surgical suites we have to fill these out for the patients. And that's the origin of this form is to go through that. Now the restorative component is a problem because that's going to wander all over all the clinics. But the surgical component should be at the time of surgery. That's it. There's no question about it.
So, and just to clarify, this starts at surgery.
At surgery.
And then the 3 tripartite form, the 3 copies, one's thick, and how do the next things, when does this get separated?
That's where the problem before is. Everybody's got to know that when you do a restoration, you've got to go back to this form and document the restoration. And that's going to be where the hang is. But as far as the surgery is concerned, they can't, they're not, before they leave the building, it should be filled out. And the other follow-up is going to be hard. Periimplantitis follow-up won't be hard because that'll be a diagnosis. People look at it, there's some bleeding or there's pocket depths, and that'll be done. The restorative component, we're going to have a hard time.
When does the patient get the copy?
If they ask for it or automatically?
I'm not sure exactly when they're going to get the copy. I think as soon as it's filled out, the implant coordinator is going to arrange, the implant coordinator, I think, well, she's going to arrange to make sure that the patient gets it.
Yeah. Bonnie Berry and I and Debbie Falter are going to meet because Bonnie is going to be tracking all the referrals from the 8th District Dental Society, which have increased, and is going to be responsible for this implant tracking form, Pat. Okay?
The ideal would be for this to be done electronically, this one, so that every time, the surgery is recorded, that you pull that up, then you do the
Right.
restorative,
Part of the
whatever.
checkout.
We can, it's impossible to get that done right now,
Yeah.
to get this done on an electronic format with everything else they're doing, real low priority. I mean, there was all we could do to get the tracking codes and to get this far.
So once you line the implant, for example, the screen will pop out and you start filling that on the computer. Once you start the abutment again.
That would be an ideal scenario, right?
But thing a little confusing to me, maybe I just don't understand how you say it. Under the restorative information,
Yes.
who fills that out?
It's the responsibility of the individual who provides the care.
But, osseous levels at the time of restoration, I mean, generally, surgery does that.
All that stuff I can't, some people wanted certain information, and that's one of the areas we wanted. But the osseous level is very important, because you can, that will assist you in diagnosing periimplantitis. In other words, if at the time of restoration, if everything's fine, and then 6 months later, you've got precipitous bone loss, well, you've seriously got a problem. And that's the reason for that.
And I understand that, but I mean, historically, when things are sent back, ready to restore,
There's a radiograph with it.
there's a radiograph that's been taken by the person who's done the surgery. Otherwise, how do they know when it's released to have restoration?
Now, but if they did not provide one, if the student is in the clinic and there is no radiograph at the time of surgical follow-up, we take an x-ray.
Yes,
We have to have a periapical before we start
How
restoration.
does it get back to the student to be restored?
Sometimes they just say, hoping that maybe the student needs to check that before they bring them in. That's why give it up before we have to get better on
The
this.
surgeon will release the patient to you with a radiograph.
Right.
And that's the precedent we want to try to follow.
Right. That's what we want here.
I understand that.
It's gonna take a while. I mean,
Yeah.
First, it's under restorative information, that's why it was confusing.
Yes, well, when you get the patient, the dentist, the dentist is going to have to be responsible to get the information.
well, it's
And
just
check
like
the-
when we get it in practice, it comes to me, if I look at the video, come in, and listen, I'll call, I need to call, and have a little communication with their replacement.
Yeah, but at least it comes with it.
Yes, just
Right.
like it should come, but
Right.
some people do not.
So why don't we ask
We have made the
of the surgeon, right.
we have asked them, that we've made that request, okay? Now, we have more control over some surgical operations than others.
Right.
So we just asked that
It's vague
you,
and it's supposed to be
try to
assisted,
cooperate
assisted,
with
going to
them.
clarify itself as it proceeds along the way, which is hard. It's hard. I understand it.
Basically, there's
But
no
it-
X-ray, we have to take one.
But prior to
Yeah.
we had nothing, so now we at least have a tracking form. We have the information available to us, now we have to keep track of it after it's.
and then we will be tweaking things as it's a living document, so to speak.
Unfortunately, it's not a living and breathing document.
Well, we gotta revive it every once in a while. I mean, I don't, this is the best we can do right now. We don't have an IT,
We don't.
Yeah, this is like less than 2
We'll have that
hours.
by August.
Yeah. Good luck. Sure.
Jane mentioned electronic in terms of this form, which reminded me of one thing, and just going back to our subject a couple of pages back, prescriptions are very soon going to be electronic only.
Right.
How is that going to be implemented in the clinic?
It's a good question. I've talked to Gunther about it and trying to figure out.
so the subject-
Oh, yeah, the subject has.
Spent many hours last summer on that,
Right.
trying to figure that out.
Yeah, and
Didn't get anywhere.
it's not, I don't think it's going to be the easiest thing to do. And depending on what the DEA or any type of regulatory body is going to throw at us is how we're going to do it. I don't know.
There's a lot of software just for that.
Right.
You can buy it.
You can just buy it.
We reviewed
Retrofit it.
them last summer.
You know?
Sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
It was simple to do, but
Somehow we couldn't do it.
Okay, fine.
I know. But it has been discussed, Pat, right? Yeah.
some kind of thing.
You know, another thing I'd say, something kind of funny. I was working with, last week in clinic, and I was working with one of the sophomores, was in as a patient. The new senior was treating the student. And so I introduced myself to the student because I really hadn't recognized her. She was a first year most of the time, so I had very little interaction with them. And she goes, "Oh yeah, you're the water guy." And I'm like, "Great, okay, I'm the water guy." So I put that up on my computer, and I'll keep that, and I'll make sure when I orientate them in August, I'm going to mention that to everybody, that I am the water guy. But how I was meant to be...
Email address.
Yeah, right. I should do that, water guy. I should do that, Pat. That's a good idea. But I wanted to give everybody a little bit of an idea what the water line situation, and this is what we're doing to shock the water lines. Ann Meyer and I kind of revised the protocol. I just wanted to give everybody just an idea of what we're actually trying to do with it, so you know. I mean, it's happening, it's going on. I'm not expecting anyone to memorize this, obviously. I just want to give you a broad idea of the scope of the situation and what has to be done in order to shock the water lines. And let's be honest, it was nothing short of a nightmare when that was all going on. And yeah, it took up my entire week that week. I did nothing else but water lines. So, you know, Ann and I are doing some testing tomorrow to see, after we switch back to municipal water, after we did that 2-day shock, let it sit over the weekend, we're going to see if we really made a difference, because all the water lines and the sinks tested beautifully after that. You know, we had Erie County in here 2 and 3 times, checking everything. I mean, they checked water at every stage coming from the pump house into Squire. So, but this is what the dental assistants are faced with. So I thought it'd be a good thing to share with everybody and give everybody a little update on that. Unspecified codes, the 999 codes that are in the computer that we seem to use on a random basis. The only problem is we're never getting paid. And the reason why we're not getting paid is because we don't file any of the reports. So we have turned the 999 codes off. Okay? Only for certain users can use the 999 codes, which we haven't determined who they will be yet. And what I've included here is a little description of that. If you want to use one of those codes, you have to go see Eileen Collins in 157 Suite. And this is the format of the report you will need to file. Okay, so I attached it here for everybody. Again, all this stuff is going to go out electronically to the faculty, whoever doesn't make the in-services, and some of the post-grad directors and things like that, because they'll need to know this. So we have to change that, because we have so many that are not being paid, and trying to rebill them, we have to then get the chart, read what the procedure was done that day, have someone make the report, and then attach it to the resubmission of the claim. I think right now, Charlotte said we have 460 of these sitting out there. Right.
I have a question relating to that. Last Friday, Anita brought up a student, poor thing, this D3 student who had her new assigned patient had some crown implants. One of them was loose, and the student thought both of them were loose. So, and it was done in April or something. So the brought them up. So we took it apart. We retorqued, blah blah blah, got it back together. What do we put down for a code?
It's a good question. I don't know if there's...
Anything, so I said, okay, it's an implant 6999, we had to apply torque and...
Right. That's what that would be.
Seal. And there wasn't going to be a fee anyway. There was no fee because we had just done this procedure. But so we said, okay, we'll put a problem-focused exam, no fee. And and then we'll just write in there what we did because of the...
Yeah, now in that case...
So how are we, we're not getting accurate coding for any of this stuff.
Right.
If we're not...
Let me ask you this. Was that a Medicaid patient?
No.
Okay. So in that case, you could just write the implant code down again that you used at the last code. Okay? So like say it was an implant, it was a crown, all right?
Insert. Okay.
It was an insert. So then you can go back and reissue a 9 on that crown insert. All right, and then write in your notes. You could file the unspecified report code, okay, which doesn't give us any information in Picasso other than the fact that we used the unspecified report code and it's going to be a 0. The report only has to be issued if you are planning to bill the patient for the procedure. Okay? So you can, and when you go to Eileen and say, listen, Eileen, I want to use this code because you explain the scenario, she'll turn it on so you can do it, and then you just go and do it, and you won't have to file a report because it's not a billable service.
Yeah, but the subcode 9 is not enough to repeat it, because the patient coming with a problem,
Yeah.
you did the exam, so you have to bill.
You could bill that out, but you're going to discount it because you don't want to, right, yep.
Yeah, so you have
Yeah.
to bill it plus U9, the subcode.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's fine too, you can do that. But what we're trying to do is eliminate a lot of discounts if we can avoid some of it, you know? And I'm going to talk about the Crown discount in a second and what we did to stop all the madness with the forms with that, okay? But that's something, go ahead, Pat.
On that
So,
9,
maybe the,
on the unspecified procedure, or the specified, there is a code for crown repair by report. Which is also a 9
Right,
series.
same thing.
Okay. Do you have any problem with just putting that as a one-surface restoration, say the buckle repair of a crown margin?
No, I don't.
Okay.
So you repair the margin,
You repair the margin, you charge a one-surface restoration,
Right.
or however many it was, and so you don't have to use crown repair by report.
right, exactly. I have no problem with it, because basically that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're doing a one-surface restoration, or 2 or 3, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I just
If
want
it's
some clarification.
3 or 4 on that, you might want to obviously do a new crown, but
Yeah.
Carrie's risk assessment is the next thing. I just included the form. Obviously, we want this on every patient, okay? Every patient needs this, all right? It's not an option. There's some instructions on the back and things to do. The report on the front is pretty self-explanatory, I think, all right? I asked a bunch of students the other day when they were doing their comp exams, they didn't have it, and they went and did it right away. I didn't have any problem. Everybody had it, and it was done. So I want to just remind everybody, I know there's a separate in-service on Carrie's risk, but again, just as another reminder. The laser policy, it says draft, but this has been approved. All right, we are working on, and I'll show it to you in a minute, on the infection control of the laser. Lasers will be in each of the dispensaries to be signed out. Okay, we have a list of faculty who have been authorized to use the laser. We have laser barriers that have been ordered. In fact, I think Matt sent me an email earlier this morning that they arrived today. We're going to have signage, appropriate signage. We're going to have operatories that are going to be blocked off to use the laser. And we're going to have 1 on the first floor, 1 on the second floor, and 2 up here on the third floor. All right?
so,
I'm sorry. I have a few faculty ask me how can they get on that list.
Okay.
You need to bring,
Yeah, whatever certificate they have.
they have for
Right.
training, you
Yeah.
have to bring in
Yeah.
a copy of it, right?
Right, and Tom Mang is collecting those. And also, too, we've been offering training courses. I met with Tom and Bob Yetto the other day. Tom, unfortunately, is out of town for the next couple of weeks, but they're looking at putting together another CE course for the summer to try and to get more people certified so that they can use the laser in clinic. Okay?
so say you don't know you're going to need this laser until you've already got your patient in the chair and they're all, have their tissue retracted, blah, blah, blah. So then you have to move your patient to wherever the
Right.
laser thing is.
Yeah, but there's only going to be 1 operatory, and usually most laser procedures aren't going to take an extensive period of time. The goal is to try and have the operatory set up for the patient to be ready. So the operatory is clean, the bracket table has all the, has the paper on it, the headrest cover's there, the lights are covered, everything's ready to go, and the barriers are up, and you just walk the patient in, do the procedure, have the patient leave, the goggles are there, everything is there. You go sign the laser out, bring it to that operatory, do it, and then the dental assistant on the floor can hopefully get that tidied up in case someone else has to use it, okay?
But the barriers, Joe, you can get them on wheels.
Yeah, that's what we have.
Right, so why don't we instead of taking the patient all the way in?
You could move it to another one, but they wanted to have everything kind of set in a certain spot because of the beams going off. So we wanted to pick corner operatories where we had 2 walls, and then we can put 2 barriers up to block the entire operatory. And we didn't want to get anything that went to the ceiling. It was suggested too to get like a curtain like you'd have in the emergency room, but then the operatories get really dark. And so, you don't want that either. So that's why we thought about the barriers that still leave some room at the top for light to come in. So we're going to set those up shortly.
Some operatories that are just.
Designated for that, right.
Nothing else.
Well, it's only one operatory, because there's only one operatory on each, there's only one laser unit on each floor. Now, certainly you can come in, if one's not being used on the second floor, you can just come and grab it, or just, what I would do is just have the dispensary people bring it down for us, you know?
So you have to reserve it, kind of.
Well, no, it'll be there to sign out.
The 6 million students want to use it.
Yeah, that's going to be, we only have 4, so.
Do we have
I'll
some
just use your tax record.
list of acceptable procedures for the laser?
No, I mean, that's more faculty-driven, Pat. You know, the faculty should be able to make the assessment on the clinic floor. Either you can use retraction cord, you can, or you need to use the laser. I mean, obviously, we still have electrosurges present around. We can always use an electrosurge too. That doesn't require anything, special precautions really at all, other than grounding the patient, obviously. That's it. And then the Crown discount, the fees have gone up. There's been like a 2% increase in fees. And what we decided to do is the Crown discount is going to be in Picasso. There'll be no need to fill out a discount form any longer. And that the fee is going to be raised from $250 to $275. And the thought is to try and get the patients to pay for the Crown right away. Okay?
Joe, just back up a second.
It's to 260, the Crown fee.
Well,
Davison?
they changed it. I thought they were going with 275, but I talked to Lynn about that last week. But Lynn Carlson and Jim.
Don't worry, they're going to send it off. We haven't done our final sign-off on it. We said 260.
Okay, then 260 it is. I'm fine with that either way. I didn't want to raise it at all, to be honest with you.
The treatment plan,
Yeah.
The reason for raising it was so we didn't have to keep writing discount forms.
Right, we don't want to write any more discount forms. So it's going to be plugged into Picasso at that fee, so the faculty don't have to discount it from $414 down to the new price.
but in the treatment plan, those fee expiration date, they still valid for the 250?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, that works for any procedure that was already quoted a patient, and the date that's on the treatment plan, that we will honor that until that date has expired. Yeah, definitely. Pat?
Joe, just backing up on that laser thing.
Sure.
Your implication seemed to be that it was, by what you ran through, that it's for tissue control for impressioning.
Well, it could be for anything that the faculty desire, that they need it for,
Okay, or
yeah.
anything else.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Okay, I'm just,
Yeah, a quick gingivectomy on something, say you're doing a, interproximal lesion, you have a lot of tissue that could be there,
that's what I.
yeah. It could be used for anything at the faculty discretion, that they think they need to use it.
Qualified to use it.
Exactly, right. And so the Crown,
Soft tissue lasers.
yeah, right.
No caries activation, Pat.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, all right. I know you were dying to do that, Patrick.
So we got another version for that.
Laser-guided remineralization.
All right. And one issue that's come up recently, and I spent some time on the phone with the ADA on Friday and some of their benefits and insurance coordinators, and both of us kind of had one of those aha moments on the phone. And so I'll go through some examples. And so example 1 is number 14 received a separate MO and DO restoration, and the accepted coding, according to the ADA, is obviously the 2392 code, 2 service posterior, but it's reported twice for an MO and a DO. Okay? We had this other example where number 19 received an MOD and a buccal restoration. So you can bill out a 3-surface posterior composite and then a buccal restoration. And the thought process behind this, according to the ADA and other people I talked to at Delta Dental, is that is what you actually did. All right? And if you're looking at compliance and accuracy on progress notes matching the ledgers, if you say are doing a bicuspid and you don't cross the entire isthmus and connect the mesial and distal, really you did a MO and a DO, all right? Which was somewhat news to me because in private practice all these years I've never done that. But then there's a little caveat to the situation in that dental plans may have clauses that restrict coverage on this, and that an alternate benefit provision can be provided by the insurance company. That doesn't really affect us that much because any patient that has a secondary insurance or an insurance carrier has to make their payments in full to the dental school before we file an insurance claim. Medicaid, because we're getting paid on a flat rate and not a fee-for-service or APG rate, will pay us for the one fee that we're getting anyway. So in meeting with Eileen and Jim and some of the business office personnel today, we are going to now allow the coding to be done that way because it is legal. According to the ADA, it says, nevertheless, when individual restorations on the same teeth are done, there is nothing in the code to indicate that it is not appropriate to report them separately. Okay? So it is completely, I know, it's completely legal to do.
No, I did that like this exactly my whole life, Joe. So I'm very happy that it's finally clarified and it's exactly, I'm sorry, as it should be.
Right.
The only reason I raised my hand, please make sure you repeat that to the students 50 million times.
Oh, I will.
Because the students were told something completely
That's right.
different.
I know, by me.
Okay?
That was my fault. Okay?
That's what we got from our legal counsel.
Right, I know. And so,
Because MO and the DO is not the MOD.
that's right.
And I had a major issue.
It's not.
Put that as
Okay? But you know, in talking to business office people, and Jim had Charlotte go through some of this and look at it, and she was amazed to find out, she's like, God, we could have been billing more. You know, we never thought of it in the practice. You could have done that. And we've never done that when we were in the office. 20 years, I never did that. You know,
The patient will have no idea until they file their insurance.
that's right. Well, which is unfortunate, Davis, but in talking to some other people, with that, some of the people in the business office who have dentists outside of the school, they are forced to pay the difference when that happens. You know, if they bill the insurance and the insurance recodes it to a 3 surface instead of two surfaces, the dentist office will send a bill based on the original billing of 2 separate restorations for that same tooth.
As long as the occlusal are not connected.
That's correct. That's right. You cannot connect, you know, you can't cross the isthmus and connect them, okay?
Okay, so we're now going to be charging out 2 occlusals for upper molar, mesial and distal fossa?
I wouldn't do that, no. I would
Why
do,
is that different?
it's not really different, Pat, but my God, that's a little extreme.
Well, isn't it more extreme to charge for two surface restorations that are separated by a 1/2 millimeter versus connect them through the next 1/2 millimeter? I'm just saying.
I agree, yeah.
Situation.
The typical class 1 is the 2 pits. I'm sorry, the typical class 1 on a first molar involves the 2 pits. I mean, that's the standard preparation for class
Right.
1 on a first molar. So that's, by nomenclature, that's a class 1, right?
Okay.
So it is considered one restoration at the end.
It is?
A class 1 on a first molar. Because I was just thinking about it. We have the 2 pits.
Well, then do you do a
separated
half,
by
do you do a half of an occlusal if it's only 1 pit that you do? What if you
Go by the
only have
surface.
1 pit?
You gotta go by the surface.
So,
Right.
The way I've always done it is for purposes of reporting, you report one surface. For purposes of charting, I put occlusal, occlusal, indicating that the 2 areas are separate for reference. Yeah.
all right, mesial triangular.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't know.
I mean, when I talked,
This morning in those scenarios, we did all this caries management stuff. What if you have like 6 little pits in there?
Yeah.
Not joining them, what do you charge for that? It's 35. One occlusal.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, when I talked to people, I didn't bring up that point, but what their point was with doing 2, interproximals was the fact that you're doing 2 distinct preparations and you're breaking contact on either side of the tooth. And now obviously what you're saying, Pat, is true. You're doing 2 distinct restorations on the occlusal surface, but the thought was you're still working within the occlusal table and the occlusal surface. That's how I'm understanding it. And with the billing 2 surfaces, you're working with an MO as the 2 surfaces and a DO and not connecting them both. So I think it's just a play on words myself. And they said they're going to come out with some new language in 2015 about it. She just wouldn't share it with me then. So,
Okay, so now when we're doing anterior restorations with distal, mesiolingual and distal lingual, we're now going to be doing them as
2 separate, that's right.
That always seemed to me to be 2 separate restorations.
Right.
Whereas this MOD restoration, that just is it joined or not joined, seemed to be,
Right.
well, whatever.
I agree. And I'm going to put scenarios together on anterior teeth, on posterior teeth, and I'll have those more for the August in-services, but again, that'll all go out to the faculty then. Ed?
You know, one of the reasons I think for identifying restorations appropriately is, or really accurately, is for forensic dentistry. If someone took a radiogram and tried to connect a narrative, which was one surface, to two pits that are two surfaces, you can't compare those two.
Yeah, I never thought of that, but that's true.
Forensic chemistry would not allow you to identify that tooth as coming from the same person that was identified in the narrative. So I'm not sure about this one surface. I think if I were you, I'd check it. Because
I will.
legally, you may not have the right to stand up.
Mary, what's
Mary, Mary.
Yeah. Dr. Bush? Nothing? Okay. Okay.
She's our big,
I know.
specialist.
Yeah. And then these are just some policies and procedures that are in progress. We've been working pretty hard on the discretionary discounts, Lynn Carlson and I and Jim Harris. The clinic manual is almost complete. Robin has done a great job with that. Infection hazard control is being redone completely. And like I mentioned earlier, the laser infection control policy is working as well. We're going to have that done by August. Yes?
Sorry, Joe, question about something completely different but similar, if you don't mind, just came to my mind.
No problem.
Let's say you are cementing a crown with the student. You want a bite wing x-ray,
Okay.
okay? Are you charging the patient for that or not? What did you say?
I did,
Let's say
see,
you want to confirm the margin adaptation,
Oh,
yeah.
okay? 5 inches underneath the soft tissue, ask the patient how to do it, you take the bite wing.
I'll give you my personal opinion. What I did in the office, and I was suspect on a margin, I would never charge the patient because I felt that was part of the crown fee to do a good job on the crown.
But you have
Same
to.
thing with implants, making sure
Yeah,
that the.
yeah. So I would say take the radiograph, note it in the chart, note it in the radiograph progress notes that you took the radiograph, and then discount it to zero because it would fall in.
You put it on a checkout, and the same with the implants that Jane brought up, because that was my next question.
Yeah, you don't charge for
Then
it.
it's a discount form as a part of the procedure.
Right, exactly. Definitely. I mean, I think,
That's when they, complain about all the discretionary discounts.
Right.
It's because they see all of that.
They don't
realize.
it's part of the procedure.
Yep.
But what I'd like to do is and part of the things I suggested with the discretionary discount is some notation in there for what the discount is for and saying, okay, this is part of a procedure that was done that needed to be either confirmed with that bite wing, okay?
That's
what we should.
Right. And so I've made some changes as far as that goes and make some recommendations. So that's hopefully part of what we're going to be doing, okay?
It's laser infection control.
Well, we issued the laser policy, but we don't have anything specific on how we're going to maintain and clean the laser.
Oh, I see the.
Okay,
actual
yeah.
equipment.
The actual cleaning and, yeah. When I went through the policy and I kept looking at it, I'm like, God, something's missing, and it was that. So we're going to make an amendment to this policy, and then we're going to make an amendment to the infection control manual to have that in there, okay? And that's really it. Now, many of you wonder how I'm tolerating this job lately. As you know, I collect old hockey stuff. I love history, and so I just threw that in there for fun. And that was at the History Museum for the last 3 months, and I just took it down the other day, so I took that picture. And that's the jersey Jerry Meehan used to score the tying goal and knock the Flyers out of the playoffs in '71. So thank you. That's it.
That's a good play you ever made.
That was the best play you ever made, is right. I agree, Davis.
The last good play.
That's a good play.
Right.
So just a question on that discretionary discount thing. I was led to believe that in the past that these discounts were charged against departmental budgets or something?
Yes.
And how does that work? Is that still the case? Is that
Right. At this point.
So even if there was no fee intended to be charged, the fact that you record a discount, the department gets charged for that x-ray that was taken?
If it's part of a procedure, I'm trying to eliminate that from being true. Yeah.
Eliminate the charge to the department.
Right, for something that's part of a procedure like what Benita was describing. But say if you're doing a redo of an MOD that may have failed, that would then go back to the department in some way, just in tracking. Because we're not generating any revenue, we're not giving any money back. It's in some cases where you're deciding to take a procedure fee say, for a denture and reduce it for circumstances that involve a patient who, say, can't pay, or they've had a lot of trouble with treatment, or it's taken so long, and you want to incentivize for the patient and kind of do something nice like we all would in the office for a patient. That's the kind of discretionary discount that then kicks back to the department. And what we're looking at too is a policy where we give each department X amount of money. We give each group director X amount of latitude in discounting procedures within their group, and then moving forward from there. So those are some of the scenarios we're playing with at this point. Okay. Anything else? Any other questions, thoughts? There will be a more complete kind of outline on things. I know some things are incomplete. Like I said, Jane and I have been working pretty diligently on the schedule and trying to figure that out. And we'll go from there. Okay, anything else? Awesome, thank you. Sure, no problem. All right.